What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Next Life Garage. Shorty long gearhead coming at you back from the basement. We're working on the Swedish child of mine today. Not doing anything major, just an oil change, tire rotation. Maybe give you a few tips for any of you guys working on the Swedish children out there, where to get parts for these things. I don't generally go to Volvo. I go to IPD USA, order bulk filters, Molly, male, whatever you want to call them. They do come with a crush washer for the oil plug, and also from IPD, just to make things a little bit easier, ordered their little filter cap wrench, as this is a cartridge filter, and you just take the housing off, put the housing back on with the filter inside. It's not an actual screw-on filter like most of the Japanese and American cars. A lot of German cars are like this as well. But just a few tips. Got her up on the poor man lift, jack stands as you guys know, and engine's warm. Wife just brought it home for lunch today. She's taken back off in one of the other cars. Left this one here for me to get some service done on. So engine's up to temperature, oil's nice and warm, it'll drain nice and easy. The tires are going to get rotated. I'm a straightforward switch back guy, meaning the backs will just come straight forward and the fronts will get flop sides and sent to the back there. Always done it that way. I know some of y'all are going to argue about doing it that way, but that's just the way that I've done it all my life, and I've never had any trouble with it. So that's the way I do it. Do it however you want. Click it in the comments how you do it. Maybe I'll take your advice. I'll get you out of the sky, show you what I've got this thing supported on under here in case any of y'all are wondering. It's a little bit different than the Nissan, and I've already got oil draining, so I'm going to get on these wheels and tires. Another something to keep in mind when working on at least this model Volvo and a lot of the German cars, they have lug bolts instead of studs and lug nuts, and also the wheel is actually hub centric on the brake rotor. So you want to make sure you get your bolt holes lined up as close as you can before you actually push the wheel on. So if you don't, you'll have trouble getting those holes to line up because the brake rotor will spin as you're trying to turn the wheel to line up your lug bolt holes. So make sure they're lined up pretty good before you start putting them back in. Otherwise you're going to mess things up turning that rotor around and turning that wheel. And I will use the impact wrench to snug these things down, but I'm not using it to set the torque on the lug bolts. I'll actually get out the torque wrench and set those to about 85 foot-pounds, which is what I do for most things except the Excursion. That one gets 155, 165 foot-pounds on the lug nuts on it. But Volvo, not quite as heavy, not quite as heavy duty, so 85 is good. New crush washer for the oil plug. 17mm bolt on the oil plug, and again the oil pan is aluminum, so not a whole lot of torque to put that thing back together. Be careful when you're messing with aluminum. Got the oil filter cap draining right now. Once it's done draining, we'll drop it down, pull the old filter out, put the new filter in, stick it back in there, and I'm going to go ahead and top off some engine oil. We'll wait on topping off the engine oil until we're done draining the filter, just in case. This is the oil filter cap housing off the bottom of the Volvo. We're going to douse it down with some brake clean, clean it up. We'll stick the new filter in it and pop it back on the car, top her back off with oil. This little oil filter cap does have a O-ring down here in the bottom of it that you want to swap out with the new one. Comes with the filter kit. Just work it off just like so, and stick the new one on, and before you thread it back into the housing, you want to make sure you put some clean oil around this O-ring so that it doesn't bind up and create a leak for you down the road. New O-ring that comes with the filter, just stick it on, work it around, roll it down, making sure you get it in that little channel that the old one came out of. We'll dry that out with paper towel after we cleaned it out with the oil or the brake clean, and we'll pop the new filter in. New filter housing, stick it in, pop it in place, and you're ready to put that back on the car after you put oil on that O-ring. Use the Castrol Edge synthetic. You know, oils like beer and whiskey, your choice. They all do pretty much the same thing, get the job done. I've just always used Castrol in all my cars, so I'm gonna keep using it. Y'all click it in the comments what y'all use and reasons why. Maybe I'll take advice from y'all. But again, this is just what I've always used, always had good luck with it. Nasty old filter. Yuck. Spray the underside of that down with some brake clean so we don't get any residual drips on the floor. Make the wife think that I didn't do a good job changing her oil. So I'm gonna go grab some brake clean. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna go grab some brake clean, get that taken care of. A little rag to wipe up the excess brake clean. Do-it-yourself funnel. Cut a quart bottle in half. That way you got a little holder for your nasty oil, and just keeps things nice and tidy. Set it back in there while you're on the car, and that just sits down in the oil filler. Makes it easier. Add oil to the car. Gonna fire it up, let it circulate a little oil through the filter, and double check our dipstick, make sure we got the right amount of oil in it. Should hold about 6 quarts, so we'll see. We'll let that settle back down. In the meantime, I'll show you my jack points and my stand points that I use to get this car up off the ground, in case any of y'all out there are doing this for the first time and are curious. On the front of the car, show you here, grill there, down underneath here. I use this support here. When we bought the car, it was already beat up like that. I'm not sure, how it got that way, and the underpan was missing and the splash shield was missing when we bought this one. So we haven't done anything to correct that stuff, but this is the bottom of the radiator core support, and in order to get my jack under here, I actually have to drive the car up on some wooden blocks. You can see one of them laying right there. Just kind of kicked it out of the way so I can get that tire on and off. But that's where I jack it up from the front. And as far as where I place jack stands, the factory offers these little things right here for your jacking points if you needed to jack the car up on the side of the road to change out a flat tire. But these are the jacking points or lifting points for using a lift. Let me grab a flashlight real quick. Those are your lifting points if you're on a actual lift, which I don't have, as y'all know. We use the poor man's lift, the jack stand. But you can see I turn the jack to where it kind of straddles in between those bolts in the front and set her back down. And in the back, you've got your lift plates right there. And again, you can see I turn the jack so it kind of straddles that hole right there. And again, that would be the lifting point for a just a lift in general. Back here in the back, to get the back end off the ground all at once, I put a little block, wooden block on top of my jack. You can see you see the wooden block on the jack there, but I go right here on this bolt basically, and the block just keeps the jack plate from squashing the exhaust there, and keeps it from squishing that emergency brake cable right here, and that just gets the back end off the ground. That's the bottom of the differential or the rear subframe on the car, right behind that exhaust hanger. So right there on that bolt's where I put that wooden block, just to try and keep things nice and even and get the back off the ground all at one time instead of having to go side to side with it. A few tips and tricks for getting these things off the ground. Looks like we need to add about half a quart of oil to it after starting the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and top off the rest of the oil with this remaining half quart I've got. And we'll set her back down on the ground and torque down the wheels, and we should be good to go. In case y'all are wondering what I do with my used motor oil, I save my containers and I put the used oil back in them, and I take them to a place called 3RC here in Winston-Salem. They're a recycling center, but most counties have an oil recyclery somewhere within them, so I'm not just throwing it in the landfill and calling it done. We are trying to be as green as we can here. We don't want to tear up the earth too much. We have enough fun with our gasoline burning engines, so least I can do is recycle the oil. At least they tell me they're recycling it. So that's what I do with this stuff. Don't tell me what you do with it if you don't do that, because I don't want to know. time to get this one back down on her feet and torque down the wheels, and we'll take her for a test drive. All done. Start her up, take her around the block, make sure we're not leaking anything, and this one should be wrapped up. Hopefully these videos are helpful for some of you young bucks out there that may be just getting started in this kind of stuff. Doing maintenance for yourself on a vehicle saves you a ton of money. I also let you know that things are getting done the way at least you want them to get done. I'm not the definitive guy on automotive maintenance and repairs, but I just show you what I've done my whole life and what's worked for me. So take my advice for a grain of salt. Do your research out there, but not that hard to do. You just got to have a little know-how, little willingness to get dirty and sweaty. Even though it is cooling off here in North Carolina this time of year, but still got hot down here in the basement. But until the next episode, Shorty Long here is telling you, don't take no wooden nickels and be good. Somebody's got to. I'll see y'all after a while, crocodiles.